Where and when were you born?
London, 1936,
And where did you spend your childhood?
in London.
Okay, now I'm going to speak to you about teddy bears. Did you have a teddy bear?
No.
Okay. Do you have any child memories of teddy bears? Any in your family? Or anything like that?
Did you have any stuffed toys at all? Like that kind of, like, a lot of people had rag dolls or cats, or just not necessarily bears.
No. I never had a doll or a teddy bear or etc.
Mm-hmm.
Later on, we had a cat who was love of my life. When I was probably about 8 or 9. Basically speaking, I was born in London. I lived in London for several years until about early 40s. Then I got evacuated down to Kent, where my auntie lived. And I lived with my auntie and uncle for a couple of 3 years during the back end of the war. And then I went back to London again, where I lived from then on, from there to schooling.
Okay, you said you didn't have any dolls. Do you have, or
No,
did you have anything that could be
no
considered
special
a doll?
doll. I can understand,
Yeah,
absolutely
yeah.
understand why people got affectionate with their animals and possessive of their animals. I didn't know. I didn't have any. Most of the things I had, I drew the crate or by myself. We were in a lot of places at that time. They didn't have much material possessions, an awful lot. My family was certainly a bit skint. So even if I'd have wanted a teddy or something, I wouldn't have got one, I'm pretty sure. But most of the toys, most of the things I amused myself with, I had to create for myself, really. That sounds a bit selfish on my parents' part, but it's the truth.
So if you ended up making your own toys and creating things, was
Yes.
that sort of in the area of construction toys or building
Yeah,
things?
I used to. Nothing much happened till I later on. I forget what age I was. Probably about 10, I should think. I started to do things like a paper round, and on Saturdays I used to deliver rolls and bread. There's a very small bakery up the road. An Italian guy used to make their own bread and rolls. I used to deliver papers from his shop in the week, and on Saturday I used to deliver bread for him locally, which is quite good. And from that, I suppose it kept me out of mischief, and also enabled me to have a wage, some money every week, which was 10 shillings. And with that, I was able to do things. So, for example, I bought a whole suggestion of it was like Meccano, but it wasn't. It was in a rectangular cardboard box. They come in boxes, like a whole sets. And this would that's about the size of them. And every pack was 10 shillings, 50p in other words. And it would enable me to create something. There was usually after about a dozen flat pieces, and there was brackets and nuts and bolts. But it was great fun to do those. I used those for some time until later on from that I did the same thing, but using money to buy a bike, push bike, which I bought for myself. I bought it on the Never Never. My father had to sign the HP document, of course, but I paid him. So that's it. And that was £17, 10 shillings. A Raleigh Tourist Sport Red. Right? But that no points of affection, if you like. No toys. I used to play with things in my imagination. For example, if I'm in too much detail, tell me and I'll shut up. I used to sit on my bed, a single bed, and put a chair on the bed, not upright but laying on the back, and sit in this chair and spread a sheet over the top of me. In my mind, I was flying an aeroplane. That was it, so this imagine, which is quite good, because in that way you can if you imagine things, you can go anywhere, do anything, be anyone, which is quite nice. And I did that quite a bit. It's quite interesting. But that was stuff that was already there, all these sheets on the bed and a chair to sit on, so that was okay. I don't think I actually created many toys. One thing I created, which I don't know how I did it, later on, when I was at school, at grammar school at that time, so I must have been 11 onwards, 12, 13. I joined the Army Cadet Corps, which is quite interesting. And in the course of doing that, we used to use the school range, which is firing 2.2 rifles, which is quite nice. But I used to collect the empty 2.2 cases, small brass cases. Didn't used to collect them like nowadays. Nowadays they brush away, but collect those. And I took them home, got a pile of these, and I created in my mind like a weapon. It wasn't. What it was a metal coat hanger, a metal coat hanger as well, which I cut into a shape, basically like that. So like a grip and a piece coming out the end, and at the end of that, I put a spring. Found a little spring somewhere, and I compressed the two bits together. So if you held it, you could hold an empty 2.2 cartridge on the end of it with your finger. When you let it go, it sprung off. And I found hours of amusement in that. And I also played, what's it called? Solitaire. You know solitaire? And you could play that either with marbles on a board, or you could play it with little wooden pegs. Have you seen it that way?
Yeah.
Used to paint them red, but anyway, these wooden pegs used to plug in. The idea is that with marbles they'd slide all over the place on a train was impossible, play it. But this was actually, they fitted into the plugs. But I found if you took these out, they were about that long, 2 centimetres long. Talking in centimetres now, watch this. So wide at the bottom and narrow at the top. You could stand them up. I used to create a scenario. I was quite impressed with the dioramas at the Imperial War Museum and also with the Science Museum. Very good they were. And I created my own with bedclothes and things. So I stood these little pegs up. Used to shoot them down. So it's quite good. I spent hours doing that. A, thinking of doing it. B, creating it. And I think that it may have been a steel coat hanger, but I'm not sure it was or not. That would have seemed to be the most likely way I'd have got that bit of kit together. That's the only thing I made, I think. Beyond my flying chair and bed. But I didn't play with any toys as such. But I thoroughly enjoyed my cat. She was lovely.
Did you ever have anything more in the area of models or modelling or anything like that?
I had to say this, I don't know the name of it, this flat pack was just like Meccano, but it wasn't Meccano. I used to buy these things from a shop in Sloane Street, bottom of Sloane Street, called Replica. for some odd reason for years they called it replica. No, replica, which is wrong. It's not replica, it's replica, but it's spelt the same. But and these things were, say, 10 shillings a packet. And as I got 10 shillings a week, I used to go and spend it on that, which is, you know, quite good. But that shop was full of stuff like that. Like probably sold Meccano, I'm sure, but this was not another make, which was in fact similar. Whether it was an arm of Meccano, I don't know, but you could make different things of it. And if you had, once you acquired several sets, several little boxes, you could then intermingle them. But I didn't. Back to your question, I didn't actually. I didn't actually play with other things, you know.
How many sets of the Meccano type thing did you get?
I probably had
How often did you get?
probably had 15 or so, I should think. I'd guess. I don't know. It all blends into one. But it's great fun.
How long would you say you collected that for? For what age? And sort of
It
what
would have
sort of
been
time
when I
did you
started. When I
get
started doing the paper round, I had no other method of income apart from that. So I guess you probably started then at about 11. There weren't health and safety and stuff. If you were big enough to carry a paper bag, you rented it. So I guess I was about probably at 11, I should think. And I'd done that probably for a year or so, and then as I joined the Army Cadet Corps, which were the 2.2 rifles, which enabled me to get these little. I was quite proud of that actually. I played with designing a missile launcher, but there was very few. I don't know. Perhaps I was the only child, and probably if I'd have had siblings, I would have been influenced perhaps by them as to what I would have chosen to play with or not.
Do you have any particularly fond memories of any of those that you haven't mentioned already? The Meccano type toy or the...
No, I mean there was obviously a great satisfaction that they gave as I remember it, on the back of these packs. They gave suggestions as to what it could be used for, what were the limits of this. For example, to make a windmill, etc. But I think half the fun was once I acquired several packets of these, sets of these, you could intermingle them. I got one thing given to me, which is quite nice for my later on for about I think the 14th or so, 30th, 40th birthday. And that was a working steam engine. A little model, probably rectangular things, with a brass boiler and paraffin doofer underneath. It used to create a wheel that around. It simply drove a piston. That was quite nice. That was going to be a cousin of mine. It was a kind of an active thing, but after a while you can't think too much about it, otherwise you think, what do you do with it then? What was the objective? When you see the wheel going round, fine, but and then there's no end. You couldn't drive anything from it. It wasn't powerful enough. That was I tried. But certainly I had no. I wasn't stuck with any particular memories, good or otherwise, of those times. You tend to live. There was nothing whatsoever outside of now. Living now. Television, well, radio. There was radio, yes. That was probably by grown-ups who used to listen to whatever I listened to, and that was it. But I think there's no exterior things apart from what the immediacy of now. That's what there was. It was kind of time
Did you ever want a teddy bear doll or construction toy that you couldn't have?
Oh yeah. I mean, setting my own construction, I'd go into the shop and see my little 10 shilling ones, and they did huge big ones for, you know, £4 or £5. They were huge. I mean, relatively, in my mind they were huge, but I never could afford those. No. I was probably content with having that, my 10 bottles every week to plan about and to do it. But I say it became easier after a while. You when you acquire several things, you can intermingle them quite happily, you know?
Are there any other memories that you'd like to talk about that you can think of?
Memories of what?
Of those, or anything linked to those that you can think of that you haven't, that you've missed? Or?
Yeah, a whole lifetime then. I mean, with regard to what?
Well, toys too.
To
What
toys.
you've already said.
I think that people, I know that people in fact were because of lack of opportunity of any kind, inevitably you had to be more imaginative. For example, I sat in my chair on my bed with a sheet over me and I was flying an aeroplane. No question about that. You know. Yeah, I knew in the back end I was imagining it, etc. But I knew that I would do it, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's fun because that's what you could do. You know, you could do it. Today, a big question of Dan, and you go on a helicopter ride somewhere, or you know, you could do it. It's only a question of money. Anything's possible, but it wasn't possible anyway in those days. No, as you know, it was a different, very much more simplistic life, but it had its values. My generation will moan about these bloody values. Some of them were very tangible, and some of them were. You think, well, thank God that's gone, you know. But now, you know, because things are better now, better in a way, but they're not altogether better. That's kind of a philosophical idea now, rather than toys. But there's no, there is a value on I can see on having boys and girls of from an attachment to a soft toy, to a teddy, or to a doll. I can also see the negative side to it as well, and sometimes the negatives are more powerful than the positives. So I think, well, because if people get dependent on anything, any third-party object, sometimes that's in the rush of things. If, for example, if they're devoting their attention to that third party thing rather than to their siblings or their parents, that affects them. Similarly, going, their parents are thrusting things in front of them for them to pay attention rather than them to get on with their life, which they're full of doing, you know. I'm not saying that every parent was devoted and spent all their life looking inwardly at the family. They didn't, obviously. Where it's appropriate, they did. And they gave that amount of attention because there's no question about it. There weren't distractions. What's on the 58 channels and it weren't there. Sometimes you only hear the radio on when my uncle, for example, used to come home from work when I was evacuated. He used to come home from work and turn the radio on for whatever. I mean, that was quite captivating. Dick Barton, Special Agent. That's a digging back in memory. That was on, and only for half an hour or so. Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. That was really good to because you could use imagination. That's the great thing about radio, that everyone has a different concept of the same thing. In the television, you know this, is a picture, and therefore everything that can be said about that object can be seen by all three of us. We're looking at the same thing. Like I say, you're wearing a purple t-shirt, that's it, and you're wearing jeans. That's obvious. But if you have to imagine that Sean's X, and they're doing these things individually, you have to use your own head, and by exercising your brain, I think it was more productive. Going back to my flying aeroplanes, but
When
I don't know, whatever size aeroplane it was, it could be as big as a Bramazon, immense, or it could be nothing.
by the time you reached 11 and nearing being a teenager and could spend money, did you feel that the sort of construction toys could satisfy that imaginative outlook, really, in the same way or in a different way?
No, I don't think so.
Not so
I
much.
thoroughly enjoyed playing with them. I've no idea where they went to in the end. I haven't got them there. But no, I think things had a value in my mind. But once that's once it's satisfied that particular requirement, need, or what have you, then that's fine. I was happy to put them away. And probably after that time, I later on bought a proper push bike, so that was another project I did. And I used to cycle from London. I was living in London then. I used to cycle from there back to my aunt and uncle in Kent again. So the first time I did that was an adventure. It's only 14 miles. It seemed like 400 to me, yeah. But it was quite nice, quite an adventure. These things go on.
Yeah.
You said you were an only child, and your parents don't sound like they were particularly lavish with you. Did you used to play out with the kids on the street much? Did they have more generous or parents that would give them stuff? And were you ever jealous of the things that they got?
No, I don't think so. No. I mean, I used to, in my part of London, we lived in Chelsea, in an extremely nice house, but we were evacuated there. I didn't know this at the time, but the owners moved out to live in wherever, and we were put in there, 3 families in this house, very nice house indeed, and that was it, normal. My peers at school, they were very much the same as myself, and I mean, some of them had, my best friends in Kent, Johnny Barnaby, he had an older brother and 2 older sisters. It was quite that interesting. They're having siblings. It was interesting seeing his reaction when we went and spent time around there and saw how he reacted with his brothers and sisters. I mean, I didn't know I was doing it, but I was doing it, watching how they did it, because I didn't do it, I have to do it. It's interesting to see his reaction to certain things, and there's definitely in every family that I've come across, there was definitely pegging order things, not necessarily by age, not necessarily by gender, but there was definite seniority of rank. Although, when I was being addressed by my cousins, who I love dearly, I was Joey, with an E on the end, and I didn't like that. My name is Joe, J-O-E, you just cut the correct, but I want J-O-E-Y. I didn't like it, Joey, but I could never have the bottle to say, don't like that. you know, but that was just a habit from their point. It was not a diminutive, he's going something else. It was, because that's what you called a younger child with my name. Some of the girls in there. Sylvie, got a cousin. He was Sylvie, same age as me. Not Sylvia, but Sylvie. The I-E in the end, or the E in the end, it showed you were younger. but not you and else. She's Elsie. She was, but it wasn't necessarily a social thing, but it was in a way, from their point of view. But then again, in those days, particularly my father was a very gentle bloke. In fact, he was a musician by trade. But my uncle, with whom I stayed, he was a guy who was in the First World War, and then he was in the Home Guard in the Second World War, and before he joined the Home Guard, he was a policeman, and he was full of his bottle, and he got discharged from the police force for being drunk on duty outside Buckingham Palace. He was a sergeant in charge. Anyway, so he was a bit of a motorite in the family. Used to go to work, come home, have a beer, and turn the television. Much as Dick Barnes for shows. But that was it. Was uncle, not uncle. The whole full vocabulary. I don't know if we got to that minute. Sorry.
Well, unless there's anything else you'd like to add to that in the work, toys or...
I think I can think with the toys. I say the things that I remember for sure is the great little device to fire the empty cartridges. That's it. Context in terms, you can't fire an empty cartridge. To use the cartridge to project as a projectile. And using the solitaire bits and pieces.
Okay, so if that's all, thanks for
Good.
participating.
I'm sorry that nothing very sparkling
How did you feel about the cadets? Because it says that you're used to your own company, like going
Yes.
off for
Yes.
long bike rides out into Kent,
Yes.
and then joining the cadets where you've got somebody who might only be a couple of years older than you,
Yeah.
giving you a hard time, pushing you around just to get...
Yeah.
Did you enjoy that, or was the military life not really appealing to you?
I very much like the army. In fact, I joined the army.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, because I was when I left school at 1951 or so. Yeah, there was still national service until 54, 55. So I had a choice when I left school that I had to either join up compulsorily with national service for 2 years, or I could volunteer for a longer period for better pay. So I decided I'd spoken to people who had been called up, and there'd been all kind of crap jobs they'd been given. You're in for 2 years and you speak the floor and that's it. I didn't really like that. My ego was too big. So I joined I volunteered and I joined the parachute regiment, which I enjoyed that. Originally that was for, we should start there for 22 years in 3-year options. So every 3 years you can come out by giving 6 months. No, anyway, I stayed eventually for over 5 years in that, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. But going back to what you said about the military thing, I quite like the system of discipline, if you like, or regularisation, if you like. I quite liked it, and I still quite like it actually. I can see lots of assets to it, and lots of bad bits as well now. But,
yeah, I guess if you're an only child, then you might not appreciate being forced into a bunch of people and all having to do the same thing. But then on the other hand, you might really miss that and like
Yes.
that kind of regimentation and organisation and having a bunch of mates that you're
That's
all
right.
doing something with.
when you see it from the other side, from looking through it, I mean, you had bunches of mates, if you like, at schools, particularly grammar school. I went to London grammar school, and they were very, very tight there. And within that there is houses, kings, takers, and your own house was a very tight thing. You liked your own house. I was in Kings, and we used to play. I didn't like playing any games, but I used to play football and cricket and what have you, soccer, for these things. And you're encouraged to be the team. You're in Kings, you know. You're not in Dakers or they're blue, but you're red, and that's it. It's your colour. Today, what am I wearing? Fucking red and white. It's been the same ever since then. And I left school, I don't know when I was, but anyway, so that's that. Some things stick with you all your life. But no, I quite like the idea of a team in a way. But I particularly liked it in my aspect of it, which is in the paras, which individually you're taught, so there's a philosophy. Instead of a regular army like going forward as a unit and stop there because the enemy's over there, you're here, you go over the top of them, you drop him on them, but when you're there you're by yourself. There's no truck behind you in a railway, and therefore you have to make the best of it. You sort it out, and you do. You pick the bones out of it, and that's it. And if you find a whole bunch of people like that, get a battalion of roughly 1,000 people, there's an awful lot of go there, and you understand how mind works.
Yeah, I guess you don't have the option, do you? It's do or die.
Yeah,
rather than, oh, we can retreat. Where are you going to retreat?
Exactly.
You're already,
You don't.
Yeah.
That doesn't. It doesn't enter the equation. But that makes a difference. True difference to all your life. Forget the army. Your entire life from that moment onwards is changed. When it's changed, it's dramatic. Traffic. Yes. It's interesting though, particularly when you can look back on it yourself, and you know why you always do anything in life. It's part of. But you look back and think, why did I do that? Why did I take that action? Was I pushed, or there's always these decisions. You're not always right. Of course, sometimes you're horribly wrong. But you find out why you've done things, and that's how you learn. Very good. Thank you for your interview time.
Well, thank you.
I can't think of other questions at the moment. You better have your default back, hadn't you?